What's going on, nation, and welcome to another episode of the Versus series. Now, last time we compared the dumbbell bicep curl to the hammer curl, and if you really enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you missed it, I'll post a link down in the info section below. Now, for this week's Versus series, we're going to be comparing the conventional deadlift to the sumo deadlift. The debate about which one is better has been around for a while, but when it comes to building power and strength, which one's going to help you lift more weight? Well, let's find out. The conventional deadlift is up first, and to perform this movement, what you're going to do is approach the barbell, and you're going to stand with your feet either facing forward or slightly angled, and they're going to be about shoulder width apart. Now, as you bend down to grab the barbell, you want to have your arms on the outside of your knees. You're going to maintain a neutral spine, keep your chest up, keep your core nice and tight. You're going to lock your arms, and you're also going to flex your lats. Once into position, you're going to push through your heels and your hips to bring the bar up. So, just like this. Now, it might look like from this angle that I'm hyperextending my back at the top of the movement. That's not what's happening. As you perform the deadlift, what you're supposed to do as you bring the barbell up to your knees is push through your hips by squeezing your glutes in order to bring the bar all the way to the top and get to the lockout. And this also means, because we're doing this, we're working our hips and our surrounding pelvic muscles as well. So what's happening inside your body during a conventional deadlift? Well, first off, this movement's going to place way more emphasis on your posterior chain. So it's going to be hitting your hamstrings, your back, and your spinal erectors, which are muscles that help support your lower back throughout the movement. And what this means is, if you have a strong back and hamstrings, you'll typically be able to deadlift more using this method when compared to the sumo deadlift. Now, some other muscle groups that are utilized throughout this movement are going to be your glutes, your quads, and your adductors. And when compared to the sumo deadlift, you're actually going to be activating your gastrocnemius a bit more as well, which is one of the two muscles that make up your calf. Now we're going to take a look at the sumo deadlift. And the setup here is a bit more precise, so you can't just grip it and rip it like you would with the conventional deadlift. So what you're going to do is you're going to approach the barbell with a wide stance. And it's more than just going to the bar and going like this and getting nice and wide. You actually have to do a few different things before you even touch the barbell. What you want to do is you want to angle your feet out so that your toes are in line with an invisible line you're going to make up in your head that goes from the middle of your upper thigh down to your ankle. So you want to visualize a line going from here to here and make sure that your toes are in line with that on both sides. And the reason why that's important is because if your toes aren't angled properly, you can put a lot of unwanted stress and tension into your knees. And it's also going to take away the amount of leverage that you're going to have during the lift. And leverage is everything when it comes to doing a max pull. You want to be able to get as much leverage as possible. Soon as this is all set and you feel nice and comfortable, what you're going to do is take both hands and go straight down and grab the barbell now in between your legs. With the conventional deadlift, we were on the outside. With the sumo, we're on the inside. You're going to keep your arms locked, your back flexed, your core nice and tight, and then once into position, you're going to push through your heels and hips to get to the top of the movement, and then come back down. As you perform the movement, you're probably going to notice right away that the barbell doesn't have to travel as far, and there's a lot less tension being placed on your lower back. So if you have a back injury or a history of lower back problems, the sumo deadlift is probably going to be a better option for you. As far as what's going on inside your body, we're still activating your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, and your gastrocnemius and adductors. But what's also happening here is we're placing a bit more emphasis on your quads and your upper traps to perform the movement. So which is the best variation? Well, before we dive into that, I would first just like to address the people who think the sumo deadlift is cheating. This variation is fully accepted in powerlifting competitions, and at the end of the day, the method you pick comes down to which variation you can use to lift the most weight. But to determine which deadlift variation is going to help you build the most overall strength and power to lift the most weight, there are quite a few things that need to be considered. The main point to keep in mind is that the deadlift variation you choose should be one that works best with your body type, injury history, and goal. For example, there are competitive powerlifters that have broken records with both variations. So to say one is better than the other comes down to personal preference. Let's begin by talking about some basic information that can help you decide where to start, and the most basic breakdown has to do with your flexibility, mobility, and length of your limbs and torso. This is important because you will clearly be weakest performing the variation of deadlift that you cannot properly set up for. For example, those who excel at the conventional deadlift usually have a short torso and long arms, and those who do best with the sumo deadlift usually have a long torso and short arms. But the main concern should be which style helps to play on your strengths to draw out the biggest lifts. If you have weak hamstrings and poor hip flexibility, the conventional deadlift may prove to be a harder movement for you to master. But the advantages for someone with strong hamstrings and good flexibility is that they can usually pull the weight off the floor extremely fast, but due to the high hip position, may struggle with the lockout. In contrast, someone who pulls sumo with a lower hip position is used to struggling with the weights off the floor, but locking out is much easier. With that in mind, let's do a final comparison, starting with the sumo deadlift. First are the advantages. The barbell has less distance to travel, the movement requires less hip flexibility, and the lockout at the top is easier, and it places less stress on the lower back. As far as disadvantages are concerned, the initial pull off the ground is harder, and getting into position requires a bit more time to set up. Now for the conventional deadlift, let's talk about some advantages there. The setup is easy, and for those who like to just grip it and rip it, it's a great lift for them. The initial pull off the ground is easier, and because the conventional deadlift places more emphasis on your back and spinal erectors, in many cases it will have the most carryover for building overall strength in the back side of your body, or posterior chain, which is what it's called, and help with getting stronger on other exercises. But disadvantages, the barbell has more distance to travel, it requires much more flexibility and hip mobility and hamstring strength, and the lockout at the top is much harder, and it also places more stress on the lower back. So to wrap this up, guys, you want to pick the variation that is going to have the most carryover into everything else you do and the movement patterns you train for. For example, if you're training for low reps or pure strength, pick the variation that best suits you, which could be sumo or conventional. But if you are, for example, a CrossFitter and train for high reps, conventional deadlifting may be your best option because of the easy setup for the touch and go reps. If your goal is to bring up your weaknesses and you have lower back and general posterior chain strengthening to do, conventional deadlifts will help strengthen these areas. But if you have weak hips, sumo deadlifts will help strengthen them, and if you're dealing with a back injury, the sumo deadlift will allow you to continue lifting while you heal up. Lastly, if you're training much more frequently, you may want to pick the variation you can recover more quickly from. Or like many competitive lifters, power or strongman, you may want to train using both methods to either eliminate weaknesses or train harder. For example, if you lift conventional, but your back and hamstrings are sore from heavy lifting, you could switch to the sumo deadlift to give your lower back a rest and keep training. Also, guys, keep in mind that if you decided to switch right now, that doesn't mean that you might magically pull more weight. Even experienced deadlifters who have spent years training in one style will see a huge large drop in their 1 rep max making the switch. But the switch may be necessary to help you overcome any weaknesses you might have. So for the beginners watching this video, try both before making a decision to which variation you are going to stick to. One last thing before we end this video, I want to share with you guys a tip that's going to help you unlock more power whether you're lifting sumo or conventional. And it has to do with your mindset before you lift the weight off the ground. A lot of people see this as a pull movement, obviously because you're pulling the weight up off the ground, but if you switch your mindset to this being more of a push, it's going to change the entire game. And what I mean by that is, once you set up to grab the barbell and do your deadlift, I want you to visualize pushing the earth down with your feet. Visualize pushing through your heels and pushing the earth down to pull that bar up. What's going to happen is a few different things. And I'm sure you guys have seen many videos of people doing a deadlift with really bad form. And what happens is, as they go to do the lift, their hips shoot up first. And as the hips shoot up, it causes your body to lean forward. And as the hips shoot up and your body leans forward, your elbows roll forward. And then as soon as that happens, your back arches like this. And then your deadlift form is completely out the window. And if you don't hurt yourself, the lift ends up becoming a slow grind as opposed to an explosive lift off the floor. But if you visualize pushing through your heels and pushing the earth down, pushing the ground down with your feet, what's going to happen is, instead of focusing on the pull and then this shooting up, you're going to push down with your feet, which is going to instinctively drive your hips into the barbell, which is giving us that explosive hip thrust that we're looking for to lift the weight up off the ground to begin with. So again, whether you're doing a sumo deadlift or a conventional deadlift, alter your perception to think of this exercise more as a push. Get down into position. Make sure everything's set up nice and straight. All your form checks are in place. And then as soon as you get ready to pull, push through your feet and then your hips, because what that's going to do is keep your form nice and tight and give you a stronger, more explosive lift every time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and this helps you pick the right deadlift variation. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss a new video, and leave your comments below and tell me what exercises you would like for me to compare next. I would also like to invite you to check out my high-protein food line, True Gains. This is my food line that I created, all high-protein, high-fiber, low-carb foods from pasta, oatmeal, and granola to bars and chips. You guys are going to absolutely love it, so make sure you click the link down in the info section below, and as always, more good stuff coming soon. See you guys.